Hello and welcome to the Everyday Adventure podcast. My name is Nikki Bass and I will be bringing you thoughts and ideas and hopefully some inspiration on how to build more adventure into your everyday life. So today I'm really excited to welcome Charlotte Fowles to the show. So Charlotte and I connected through a mutual friend, Kim Willis, who was actually, I think, on episode 2 or 3 of the podcast when it started, who founded the wonderful Heroine's Journey series. And she ran a virtual series through lockdown. So Charlotte is known as the executive adventurer, and she helps corporate leaders to step outside of their comfort zone and really live life to the full. And she lives this lifestyle herself. So she does free diving, she's run marathons, she went solo hiking whilst on chemotherapy. So she's done all these incredible things. And I could probably spend an episode talking to her about all her other adventures. The reason I wanted Charlotte to come on the show this time was because I really wanted to speak to her about what she's been up to in lockdown, because I just think it's absolutely amazing. So for the period of lockdown, she basically ran 3-minute, one-track virtual dance parties every day, 3 times a day. So she ran these for 14 weeks throughout the whole of lockdown. Unfortunately, we only managed to join a few of them, but whenever we did, my daughter just completely loved it and did about 17 costume changes. But to me, it really epitomized everything that Everyday Adventure and the Everyday Adventure podcast is all about, which is about how you find those moments of joy just in your everyday life. And even harder to do that when we were in such a strange time over lockdown too. So welcome, Charlotte. It's brilliant to have you here. What inspired you to start the 3-minute dance parties? Where did the idea come from?
So it was obviously a weird time for everybody at the beginning, and I had a particularly weird year as well. We can go into more of that later if needs be. And I went for a run, which, by the way, I hate doing. I'm not a natural runner and do not love it. But I thought I'll get out. It was a sunny day in March, I think, back when this all started. I thought I'll take advantage. I'll go for a shuffle type run. I don't really like it. I listen to music as I run, and really, really, really happy track came on. And I just started dancing as I was running, literally dancing down the road, waving my arms around, shimmying, like dancing around the corners, like stopping. And I love dancing, and it just made me so happy to do this. And I got back, and I was just like really, really lifted by listening to the music and dancing because I love it so much. And I got a bit of exercise while I was doing it. Coordination was a bit tricky sometimes, trying to incorporate some moves with dancing, but I think that it was just so silly and it just felt so fun. And I thought, that's what it did for me. Maybe other people might like to do that. And I knew already that people were starting to struggle with, this weird situation and a lack of any routine and contact of weird stuff. And I also like to try and help if I can. And I'm not a frontline worker. My family are all key workers, teachers and nurses and things like that. And I was just thinking, maybe it could help some people. I'll just see if anybody wants to join me on a Zoom and just dance around like a fool for a few minutes, and just thought it could help. Again, I know that it's difficult to commit to things and stuff like that. But I thought, well, if I just say it's just one track and maybe like 3 times a day, so it breaks up the day, helps people get up at 8 a.m., maybe touch point at like 1 o'clock for people having a bit of a slump, and then a 7 p.m. for people who couldn't make the other times. And so I thought, well, I'll try it and see how it goes. Thinking it would be for like a couple of weeks. And then I think I did a podcast a couple of weeks in with somebody, and they were like, oh, how's it going? I was like, yeah, I'm a bit tired, but it's fine. I had no idea it would last for so long.
Brilliant.
So yeah, that's kind of how it came about.
Amazing. And then it lasted for the full 14 weeks in the end. How many people did you have joining you by the end of it?
Well, at the peak, everyone got Zoom fatigue and all the rest of it. But I think at its peak, we had probably over 70 people in one. And that was sort of a few weeks in. And it was kind of like a Thursday night seemed to be quite a busy one. And sometimes the mornings and the weekends were quieter because I think people did other things and didn't need it to break up their workday so much. And then by the end, we had like a regular crew, as I call it, of about 35 people that would come any of the times they could make it. So it wasn't always like 30 people, but it might be it was normally hovering around 15 at least, and then it would go up or down. And most of these people were people I didn't know. So before lockdown, I posted in various groups that I belonged to, all sorts of outdoorsy adventure groups and other things, and all over my social medias. And so I didn't know any of these people before it started.
That's amazing. So, because that was going to be my next question, how many of them are friends and family versus, and I know you've had some really interesting or some amazing stories that have happened as a result of the dance party. Can you tell us more about sort of, I guess, the connections that have grown out of it?
Yeah, so one day, I would say to people, look, if you've got any requests, let me know, because of course I had to think of a different song 3 times a day for 14 weeks, and well, I got a bit creative around it, and I'll talk a bit more about that another time. But it ended up being about 1,000 minutes of dance that we did over the whole time. And sometimes people would contact me on Facebook saying it's so and so's birthday, or something's going on, and can we have a request? And I'd be like, yeah, that's great, that's brilliant. And one day a woman contacted me and said she was having to shield, so she couldn't go outside at all. And she said, my partner, they live separately, but they're a couple. And she said, so they haven't been able to see each other at all. And she said, we try and join the dance parties as much as we can to like dance with each other through the dance parties.
Oh,
which
amazing.
was just the sweetest thing. And when I knew that, it kind of made sense, because I'd seen these sort of people looking like extra happy in the dance party, like looking into the camera and stuff, and you just think they look happy, and and that was because they were seeing each other and they were like sort of dancing together. And one day their little squares on Zoom actually were next to each other, and I like sent them pictures of like, oh look, this is a like screenshot of you guys, because I tend to record a little bit of each party. So that was lovely, and they said it's just been such a great way for them to connect. Other people had actually really unexpectedly people saying towards the end, look, this has been my lifeline. I was really struggling at the beginning, or I was really lonely, or I was having anxiety, and this really helped me. It helped me feel connected, and helped that loads of strangers cared about me, or at least would say hi. And we always have a little chat. So that was great. We had somebody who was supposed to run the marathon. She ran it anyway, and we were sort of like at points dialing in and cheering her on. So that was really cool. And then couple that I found out were a couple, I sort of said on the dance party, so these guys are a couple, and dancing, and then they mentioned maybe learning to dance. And then another woman on there was an instructor or new dance instructors, and they ended up learning the Charleston virtually separately, so when they get back together they could actually dance together. And I thought that was really sweet. And then that couple actually ended up getting engaged. So we joined a dance party for her 40th birthday. And then later on, they messaged to say they'd actually, again, still physically distanced, but got engaged. So we then all danced with them in celebration to the very romantic MC Hammer and You Can't Touch This, because they still couldn't actually be together.
Brilliant.
So that was really lovely. We felt like we knew them by then. And it was really lovely. And yeah, I've got all these new friends that I never knew before. And that's just been really great.
Incredible. So I guess that's probably going to be my next question anyway, because obviously in a way when you started it you didn't necessarily have a name other than it just brought you joy and you wanted to share that. But it sounds like you've had so many sort of unexpected benefits or the result of doing it. I was just wondering, what's it brought you personally over this time, do you think?
Oh, there's just so much. Mainly these people, they're just so lovely. And it was a great way to see some of the people I also did know. I'd say, oh, do you want to? They knew they could pop in any of the 3 times a day and I'd be there. And so occasionally it was quite nice when someone I knew did pop up. I was like, oh, hey, it's good to see you. But these new friends has just been lovely. We've actually now, I decided to finish it when I did, because everything was opening up a bit, and it'd been a long time. But we actually do still meet ad hoc times during the week. So depending on what I'm doing during this week, I've created a small private group now, and I say to people, oh, let's do a couple of 1 p.m.s and maybe 1 7, but it's just not 3 times a day every day. So I now have this community of people who I didn't know before, and that's really, really lovely. And they were just so wonderful to me. So I was on chemotherapy for a year up until the end of May. And so when I had a massive party, as in a dance party, I couldn't see anyone else, to celebrate that. And loads of my friends and family joined, and all these new friends did. And they sent me messages and cards. And then when I moved house again, belatedly, I'd been kind of basically living out of bags for like almost a year because of various other things that were going on. And then I couldn't move into a house because I'd found one, but I couldn't move into it because of COVID. So when I finally got here, they all sort of conspired behind my back to like arrange a package of like cards and messages. And so that was lovely. And yeah, it really did lift me, you know, in the days when I couldn't be bothered and things. I was like, well, I'll have to. And, you know, I work with clients every day and use coaching as one of my main tools. And sometimes what you need is just a bit of a break, or what you call a pattern interrupt, because you can't feel more than one emotion at a time. So if I was a bit low, having to go on and say, hey, everyone, and then dance for 3 minutes, that did lift me. So it was just as useful to me as other people. But yeah, that was really great. And then I guess a couple of other things, you know, my energy was very low during the chemotherapy. Often, like, I was exhausted all day, every day, basically. So it just helped me feel a bit energized in a fun way without feeling too exhausted. And then, you know, I got creative. It really expanded my creativity, because I started to think, oh, how could we make it a bit more interesting? So we used to have Fancy Dress Friday, we had Bambaleo Wednesday, we ended up having Topical Tuesday, Air Guitar Thursday. So you know, it was, again, that was a good experience for me in sort of creating something, and then it evolving a bit and coming up with other ideas, and also being really visible and present to other people that I didn't know, but also on social media. And, you know, lots of people are private, and that's fine. But, you know, I run my own business. And as you all know, when you do that, there is an element of being visible you need to do. And we get in our heads so much, well, I do anyway, about what we look like, what we sound like, and getting out there and saying the right thing and doing the right thing, you know, taking 300 takes before we put something out there. And this was just a really, really good practice for being myself, enjoying that, and being in front of people on the camera. And I did lots of promotion for it on social media as well. And again, just not caring what anyone else thought. So that's been an unexpected benefit too.
Amazing. I mean, I love, there's so many points there, but I think, you know, that point about community, which is something I think we come back to time and again, whoever I've spoken to on the podcast, it's been actually one of the things they've benefited most from whatever activity they've done, is this sense of, you know, being part of a community, and in some way that being the unexpected bit, that's not necessarily what you set out, but in a way that's the biggest reward you get from it. And I love what you said as well about just that, yeah, having to put yourself out there even when you don't feel like doing it, so that you've committed to something, but also you're doing it for other people, but in a way you also end up doing it for yourself, because it proves to you that you can do it, and it lifts you in that process too.
It was a huge commitment. It was a huge commitment.
Gosh.
And I had not, to be honest, envisaged it going on for that long. Show up every day, you know. I'm not a parent, but I know that you are, and other people are, and you don't have any choice. You have to do that. It's not like you can go, hey guys, I can't be bothered today, I'm not going to bother. You just have to show up for your kids. And this has been such a hard time for almost all parents that I know, I think. And this is nothing like that, but it was definitely a kind of showing up and committed to show up, even when you don't necessarily feel like it every day, and for much less time than a parent.
I don't know, there are times when I literally show up for 3 minutes and then went to the loo and shut the door. So I totally get that parallel. Yeah, I think that's really interesting, isn't it? That thing about showing up. And I guess I'm just interested in terms of then what you take forward from the experience. What are the things that you think that's something that's really important to me, and in a way maybe I didn't realize how that was important? What would you want to take into any other aspects, I guess, whether it's your work or your life?
Well, I guess there's quite a lot, really, but that, you know, that knowledge that making a commitment and running a community takes your energy. And if I didn't, that's not what I established to do. And I think that's often the wrong way round. I think sometimes people do establish a community, and that's great, but often a community is established around something, which is almost more organic way. But the problem with that is that if there hasn't been a thought through strategy, you know, it can snowball in a great way bigger things than just my dance party. But, you know, and then you find yourself caught up along with it. So is it still being true to what you thought, and is it still fun? And for me, that was the case for dance party. So if I was thinking of a wider community type thing, it does take a lot of you. And if it is a lot of you in there, you know, you are the person who is running it, and that's what people are coming for to see you, then you need to think, I would need to think about how I might manage that, have a day off, or how I might get other people to help. I mean, none of us can do any of this life stuff alone. And I think that's one of the biggest things I say to people, is to find a good support system know who your cheerleaders are and ask for what you need. And that definitely would be a thing. I think I might have had one day off. I went to a few medical appointments, but I was committed to doing the whole lot. But there was a couple of times where I thought, I just need to not. And then they all were like, oh, we'll host and it's fine. So yeah, that's quite a good thing, actually. And I've seen that with a few people I know, and things have snowballed in a great way. And it's almost like to take a step back and check in regularly and kind of get that support. And it's fine to change direction. It's fine to try stuff out as well,
Yeah, definitely. Being able to hand over or hand off some of it as well, I think, like you said, once you start something and then it moves far and gathers its own momentum, how you then step back a little bit and be able to that's really interesting. So what is next? I mean, have you got any plans? You mentioned that you've created a sort of a group for people who do want to take part, but have you got any other thoughts about what, like you said, what else you might want to do in the future?
Well, definitely nothing really with that in any way, other than just it's lovely to see these people. And every time I see them now, I'm like, hey, I've missed you guys. It's nice that it's not every day, 3 times a day anymore, but it is really nice that we still get to do that and dance around. And that's been lovely. And again, one of the women in it said, oh, I'm not ready to give up my 8 a.m. ones yet. So she's running the 8 a.m. ones every morning, and I've been to like one of them. So that's great. That's been really lovely. But I don't have any plans with it in that respect. But definitely it's been so useful for work for me, the visibility thing. One of my coaches used to say visibility is an inner game first. It's been huge, helping me with that inner game of getting over a lot of the worries that a lot of us have about being visible. So that's really helping me with my work and thinking about, I've already done a few, for example, podcasts, that would have been very nervous and for me before. And now I'm just like, sure, yeah, that's why not? Dance like a lunatic in front of strangers for 14 weeks in a dinosaur outfit or dressed as a banana. So it kind of, I can do anything sort of thing. So yeah, thinking that now much more about some of the content I create for people that might want to know more about my work on YouTube, and also around some like a course that I'll be developing in the next few months and things like that. So that's what's next, is really carrying on with work that I've been lucky enough to carry on doing during the lockdown, but definitely pushed me way past any sort of barriers that I had before around some of that. So that's what's next for me, doing some of that. And, I had a client tell me the other day, just as part of one of our sessions, we're talking about the work and the process that she's been through and how it's been. And she just said, well, there's still so much more I want to do and all the rest of it. But as a result of this work, I feel like if I died tomorrow, I could die happy. And to me, I was like, let's have more of that.
Yes. Gosh.
So that's what's
powerful.
next. Yeah.
Amazing. And I think it's so interesting, isn't it, given that your work is around helping people get outside of their comfort zones, that, and I know this sort of from my perspective as well, that actually sometimes our comfort zones are in places that we don't, or our lack of comfort zones in places we don't necessarily expect. Like you said, that thing about visibility and being seen and putting yourself out there, and how in a way that's, you're not necessarily doing something to break that down, but just through the process of what you've done has helped expand that comfort zone more widely too. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, dancing was my comfort zone. The amount of social media I had to do, it wasn't. I did some, but I didn't do that much, that regularly, every day. Hey, here I am. And there's a lot of that around. We feel like we're badgering people, or and I don't care about any of that anymore. Like, it doesn't matter. If people don't want to see it, they'll look away. If it's not for them, they don't care. That's fine. But if I don't put it out there, no one will see it, and that's how I felt about the dance parties. I want people to come for them, not just for me, and almost complete detachment from that, which has been really, really powerful. And that comfort zone stuff is certainly, like you say, I try and get outside of my comfort zone in lots of ways, because it helps me when I'm trying to do something else to think, oh, who did I need to be when I did that? Let's bring her along and see if she can help me in this situation. And that's been really helpful. So yeah, dance party, comfort zone type stuff I'll be using for a long time.
Fantastic. So for anyone listening this and they're thinking, actually, I'm in a place where I'd quite like to start stepping outside of my comfort zone, and I'm not quite sure where to start. I guess, what's one piece of advice that you give them to help them get started on that?
Well, it depends on what it is you want. What do you want? I know you write and talk about adventures, and if you're planning an adventure, it'd be like, what do you want out of it? Think really hard about that. And what we want to do or to have is often related to who do we want to be. Like, so how, that's what I think about. Like, who do you want to be in that moment? If you want to be braver, if you want to be, I don't know, more knowledgeable, whatever it is you want to do that's a bit outside your comfort zone. And, really tap into that motivation, because that's what will really get you across that first step. Often that first step's the hardest. And remember, you don't have to know how, you just have to know and believe that it's possible. And that's really the thing. Like, a lot of the time, the sort of shift in our heads has to be between, oh, I want to do this, but I've got no idea how. And so we don't even start. Instead of, I don't need to know how, I just think that would be great. And then start reading an article, start dreaming about it, start daydreaming about it. I mean, like, go and read something, talk to people, just little things that kind of help that enthusiasm bubble up. So it almost feels like you can't not take that little step. And then, of course, you'll know the next thing is to just massively, massively break it right down. Don't worry about getting to the end, whatever the big thing is. Just like, what is the first thing that you need to do? And then just do that. Because then once you've done that, then you'll know what the next step is. And you don't have to know them. You don't have to see them all to be able to actually do it. And the other piece of advice, actually, that I would have would be, it sounds a bit funny, but when I was training it once when I was in the corporate world, someone mentioned and said, oh, there's always a poo in the pool. And what they mean is there's always somebody there who be put the downer on it. And just be aware that even really well-meaning people, if they're trying to look out for you and you've got a big dream or even a little dream or something you're enthusiastic about it, there's always a poo in the pool. So, it's be careful with your information flow. If it's something that you really want to do and you're not quite ready to share, you don't have to. But try and find the people that will support no matter what, and maybe just share it with a couple. Again, I heard somebody say once that a dream and something you really care about is when you're trying to just get going, it's like a little tiny seed, like a plant, and you need to put it in water, put it in soil, give it water and some sunlight, and it'll do its thing. But if you give it fertilizer and take extra care of it, it'll grow quicker. And if you expose it to harsh environment, it may wither. And I really like that sort of, I think the word's analogy for something you really want to do, getting outside your comfort zone.
Yeah, no, that's a wonderful analogy. And yeah, I'm so going to use the poo in the pool phrase from now on.
It's just so funny because everybody knows you'd be like, run away or swim away, as it were. But there's always, and you know what? It isn't always people who are just the haters, as we call it. Sometimes it's people who love you and they're just going, oh, but what about this? Oh, aren't you scared? What about, and you may not need to hear all those things because you've got over them to be able to take that first step. So I think it's often meant with love and people just trying to protect us, but often we don't need it when we're just trying to branch out.
And sometimes it's recognizing it, isn't it, as well, and going, okay, that's the thing. I know it's there and I know why they're doing it.
Yes.
But maybe I just need to avoid that. I need to nurture that little plant growing.
And it's new for sure. And because, the other phrase that I love from this amazing coach called Rich Litvin actually is that, confidence is a result, not a requirement. So we often think when I'm more confident, I will X, Y, Z, but actually we often get confidence from doing something. So, until we've done it, we just need to protect that little spark of bravery until we're ready to share.
That is really rich. Thank you. That's amazing. I think anyone listening to that should be properly ready to get started now. Thank you so much, Charlotte. It's been such a pleasure. If people want to find out more about you, where can they go?
The best place is my Instagram, which is at fowles.charlotte, and I do have a website. My stuff is on there, but if I'm doing anything, the website's also linked to the Instagram, so all news and things I'm sharing and stuff like that is on there. So yeah, that's probably the best. But if you want to get in contact with me, there's a contact form on the website, or you can direct message me through Instagram. So yeah, if you're not a grammer, I'm on the website too.
Brilliant. Thanks so much again. It's lovely to have you here, and hopefully have you back in the future to talk about some more adventures too.
Sure. Thank you for having me.
So my conversation with Charlotte took me right back to the heart, really, of why I started this podcast in the first place. This idea that you can have adventure, or that you can try something new, take yourself out of your comfort zone, not even on your doorstep in this case, right in your living room. And that adventure is about putting yourself out there in a way. And you know, as Charlotte mentioned, actually one of the biggest things for her was visibility, being seen, having to show up for people every day, and that people started to rely on her to be there for them. But I think it also really chimes with this idea of how we make an impact in the world, how we make a difference. And I think, especially at the moment, there are so many challenges out there that sometimes it can feel hard to think, actually, what difference can I make? I'm just one person with all of these things going on around me. My conversation with Charlotte really reminded me that actually the change starts on your doorstep in the end. It's about how you show up, it's about what you bring. It's about how you make change and make a difference in your small space around you, and how you impact those around you. And in Charlotte's case, how she went on to actually make such a difference to people she didn't know, just through something that actually brought her joy in the first place. And that often these changes start with a small seed of an idea that we don't know where they're going to go. Actually, you don't necessarily have to have the path mapped out in front. It's just trying something right there, right now, with what you've got. And actually, that if what it does is make a difference for you in the process, and that's where it ends up being, that's good enough too. That some things do snowball and do create ripple effects, and you don't know where those ripple effects have led to, and sometimes you'll never know. And you know, it's learning to be okay with that too, going, actually, what I'm doing may impact on other people around me, and I'm hoping it has a positive impact. But right now it's having a huge positive impact on me, and that's good, and that's a really good place to start. So, you know, my final point really is just sometimes we need to remind ourselves where we were at the start of our journeys. You know, as we go on and as things grow, and you have an idea, and then it grows and it turns into something else, and suddenly you're a couple of years on and thinking of something different. Sometimes it's really good just to reflect back and remember that person who was sat there with that idea and that feeling in their stomach of having no idea where it was going to go, and feeling, you know, taking that first step to put that idea or put themselves out into the world. And if we can reconnect with that bit of ourselves every now and then, I think it's a really great spur to other adventures, because it reminds you that every adventure starts with that feeling, that sense of, I don't know if this is possible, or I don't know where this is going to go. We don't need to have it all figured out right from the start. So I really hope you enjoyed that conversation. If you've got any comments, if you've got anything you'd like to share, please do reach out to me. I'm on Instagram at Resilience at Work. You can send me a DM, comment on the posts, or you can join us on Facebook in the Everyday Adventure Club. Otherwise, I will be back next week with another conversation with another wonderful guest. And I look forward to speaking to you then. Speak to you soon. Bye.